There is a certain type of street photography location that I just kind of can't stand to shoot anymore. But today, in the spirit of growth, I'm gonna go out and do exactly that. Now, if you remember last week, I talked about how spoiled I've become as a street photographer. It's something that almost hurts a little bit to admit, but the reality is that going to a whole bunch of really cool places and spending months shooting in cities like Mexico City and New York and San Francisco and Lisbon, they make other places kind of pale in comparison. I'm ashamed to admit that my versatility has kind of waned as a photographer, and I've become much pickier about where I shoot and when I shoot. It should also be said that my style, these sort of postcard-esque compositions, it just doesn't always mesh well with these more kind of utilitarian, concrete-heavy, almost brutalist environments. And since releasing that video, I've made a point of going out to those places that I've been less enthusiastic about shooting lately. So in this video, I'm going to share my struggles, my results, my experience, and I also want to talk about how we can all take any location, no matter how mundane, and walk away with some fantastic photos. So this video is set in downtown Seattle. Now, with a city like this, I would have ordinarily gravitated towards the waterfront, the boats, the marinas, things like that, the Pike Place Market, tourist landmarks like the Seattle Center with the Space Needle, things that draw a crowd, that sort of thing. And I think that there is something to be said for that, just making it as easy as possible. But if you live in one city long term, you're gonna get bored of shooting those landmarks. So I was really on a mission to explore the more landlocked part of the cities, places I would go if I lived in Seattle full time and maybe was tired of shooting at the market or the waterfront. So with that, let's talk about some of the photos that I came away with and also have a conversation about how you can make more mundane locations look just a little bit more interesting. Okay, so this first photo is proof that you don't need every single element of a scene to be perfectly photogenic in order to create a composition that is worthwhile. So here I have this building facade in the background. I think that this is interesting. I like the repetition of it, and I like this sort of clean, geometric look that it lends the scene. And then I like the juxtaposition of this awning that kind of comes across at an angle with this sort of like ornate carving going on. Pair that with just a simple subject walking into frame, put her on the rule of thirds, done, easy. Super quick and easy first kind of warm-up shot to take. Now, the next couple of shots that I want to talk to were all taken around this one intersection. Here, what I liked is kind of the vanishing lines of the streets going back, in between the skyscrapers and seeing all the buildings kind of, off into the distance. And so being a street photographer, I naturally wanted to find a frame that includes people in it. So I waited for the right subjects to come through and just kind of played with some angles. This is something you can do really in any major city with tall buildings. Find these sort of vertical lines and you can create super easy subject-led compositions. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is using passing subjects, people walking by you on the street, to kind of isolate just a small architectural detail. So again, this is kind of about, the whole scene doesn't have to be photogenic, but if you find a wall like this that has this kind of like stonework and these arches and things going on, that's interesting, but maybe, unless you're an architecture photographer, you don't want to just get the building itself. So I feel like these are a good example of how you can use people to embellish the frame. Use the architecture as a centerpiece, but then, take these folks walking by, make them a character in a scene where that architecture is just the backdrop. This next set I think is really interesting because I definitely built on an idea, and you can see, shot after shot in this sequence, how my brain sort of started working here. And I think this is something that you'll get a lot from. So here I was standing across the street from just this building facade, these awnings, nothing to write home about, but I liked the way the light was hitting it and I wanted to see what I could do. So these first couple shots, people walking by on the street, nothing crazy, but then I noticed that there was a bike lane in front of me that was relatively busy, and I thought, what if I could capture a biker on my side of the street up close and personal, maybe with a little bit of motion blur. And I did just that. Not only do I have the light kind of hitting this backdrop the way that I really enjoyed, but I also have this foreground element in these cars and the bikes, sort of just demonstrating the liveliness of the city, the fact that people are out and commuting in different ways. Yeah, I feel like these turned out pretty well. Then we get into the abstract stuff. When you run out of ideas, when you're in a place that's maybe kind of dead, there's not a lot of people around, the light's not great, it's overcast, that's when you can start to get a little weird with it. And by weird, I mean like close-up shadows and playing with shapes and reflections and motion blur and things like that. For me, this is something that I kind of resort to when I run out of ideas entirely. People's feet walking through a puddle of light. Sure, why not, capture that. But then there's also motion blur, panning shots, things like that. I take tons and tons and tons of reflection photos. Every once in a while you get something really great. And it does take time, patience, and practice, but this is something that can be done almost anywhere. Now, you know me, if you've watched my videos before, I'm not the most confrontational street photographer out there. I'm definitely no Bruce Gilden, but every once in a while I do like to take a good person-led photo if I have a great subject. And one of the things that to me makes a great subject is if the subject can tell you all on their own exactly where you are. What do I mean by that? Sports jerseys, hats, anything like that. This guy has a jersey on that literally says Seattle right across the front. I like the story behind this subject in this photo. I love the fact that it's like a signpost pointing the viewer towards exactly what and where they're looking at. So a couple things to wrap this up. A, that it was still extremely possible to get great photos, and B, that once I got the creative juices flowing, walked up and down a few blocks and started taking some photos, it got a lot easier. So maybe the moral of the story there is that a lot of the time it's just about starting. Even if you feel like you don't have anything to shoot, something is still better than nothing. Even if you go and take photos of a place that you're not excited about shooting, you'll still probably learn a little something about photography, composition, your personal preferences as a photographer. And even though I'm gonna keep traveling and I'm gonna keep seeking out these really cool places, these once in a lifetime places that I am so lucky to have the opportunity to visit, this was a lot of fun. It was a good exercise for me, and it was a nice baby step in kind of this new initiative I have with myself to stay creative and enjoy my surroundings, no matter how mundane or no matter how breathtaking or jaw-dropping they might be. So if you happen to be feeling stumped, go take a walk around your neighborhood and just let me know what you come away with, whether it's nothing, whether it's something. I want to know what you learn. Drop that down in the comments if you have a few minutes. But with that, I just want to say, as always, thank you so much for watching. Your guys' support always means the world, and I will see you very, very soon in the next one.